Today's fresh episode comes to you from a guitar. Well, technically, Guitar Cookies from Twitter. This individual provides the most compelling and succinct summary of Solana Pay versus FlexaNetwork's Amp Token, and in a way that aligns in a great way with my research. Welcome to Unusual Due Diligence. I'm your host, Poseidon, god of the sea and animate milkshake. In this episode, we're going to compare and contrast Solana Pay to the Flexa Amp network. You might wonder why I'm doing this. It involves connections to basketball conspiracy and someone by the name of Chamath, a minority stakeholder in the NBA Warriors. This episode is going to bring together what Guitar Cookies has to say, and then chew on those cookies to create the following chart, which will resemble some noise. Specifically, 20 items of great guitar noise. Here we go. The chart is organized into 3 columns. On the first column are the comparison items. On the second column are FlexaNetwork's Amp Token, and the third column is Solana Pay. What we're looking at here is to try to identify, does FlexaNetwork have the item listed in column 1, or does Solana Pay have the item listed in column 1? Let's begin. Collateralization and protect against fraud. Does the FlexaNetwork Amp Token provide this? Yes. Solana Pay? No. Now, I won't read through all 20 of these items because we're going to talk about them, but I'll leave it on the screen as I go through these in further detail. So you might be wondering, am I just covering what Guitar Cookies has already said? The answer is no. Instead, what I'm going to do is add on a bit more to what Guitar Cookies has said, which I find rather curious because I add on a bit more based on what I call the unusual trail of following the money. Also, I want to note here that Guitar Cookies does not talk about Pantera Capital. For our purposes, it's worth mentioning because it's interesting. You'll find out why soon. Okay, let's begin. Collateralization, protect against fraud, or bad transactions. There are important ideas behind what FlexaNetwork and the Amp Token are achieving. The big idea is collateralization against fraud, or even just bad transactions. You know, system errors. The reason why this is important is that it raises the value of cryptocurrency as a tradable asset. I note on the screen that the Amp Token is designed in a way to ensure that a transaction settles correctly. But Solana Pay, well, it's fast, but it lacks some of these settlement features. Now, there is an argument to be made that if all the transactions are on Solana Pay, then it's less of an issue. However, have you ever been out shopping just about anywhere recently? Do you really think we're going to have just one way to pay? I don't. Matter of fact, I'd argue the big winner of tomorrow will be whomever figures out how to make any asset tradable. Any asset. FlexaNetwork has the distinct advantage of making any asset safe to be used as a tradable currency. As funny as it sounds, even if Solana Pay were to change its mechanism, then it would still be tradable conceptually with the Amp Token. In a way, Solana Pay is helping usher in the rise of the Amp Token. That's because having more people exposed to using cryptocurrency to pay for goods and services helps achieve economic utility of our favorite projects, such as the Amp Token, even if the Solana Pay is argued for or against by billionaires. Chamath. There are 4 distinct camps for Chamath. 1. You're a fan of Chamath and his projects. 2. You're not a fan of Chamath, and there's nothing wrong with either of those 2 perspectives. 3rd, you just have no opinion about Chamath, but you know staking AMP is important, so you're present to hear what the Solana Pay is all about. 4th, well, you are Chamath, and you're watching the channel to see what this little corner of weird has to say about you. Speaking of this channel, I've said before, the channel has a token. I even wrote a paper about it and the reasons behind why. Someday, I'll figure out how to achieve those aspirations, but in the meantime, let's talk about why that is important. UnDD'er token. This channel has a token called the UnDD'er token. Technically, this is a token using the SPL program token contract on the Solana blockchain. As it stands, I split the total pool of allocated tokens while I continue searching for inspiration for what to do with it. However, there's a question. Let's say in some future world, the UnDD'er token obtains value as a collectible. If it does, the next question is, quote, can I spend that? End quote. Given Solana Pay is based on Solana, and the AMP project allows for any asset to be tradable, it's split. But what about tokens not on Solana? Well, there is the Jump Crypto Maintain wormhole that's just fascinating. We're building these interconnected technologies that bring things together. Very interesting. Money transmitter license. Solana Pay may have a billionaire, but FlexaNetwork has the good graces of the US government. Tyler Spalding and team have been relentlessly pursuing money transmitter licensure and other regulation checkboxes that, for large companies, hey, these really matter. When I say matter, I mean, quote, if you don't meet the regulation and we cannot do business with you, end quote, kind of matter. MetaMask, Phantom, Coinbase. Wallet support is important, but it's not the full story. We're not yet at a point where grandma can remember or even use a digital wallet like MetaMask, Phantom, or Coinbase. NCR, ATM, and cash registers. FlexaNetwork has the clear advantage here because they've got something over Solana Pay that may result in the Solana folks talking to FlexaNetwork for, well, help. And what is that? A proven model in relationship with NCR. Did you know NCR also makes ATMs? The next time you walk by an ATM, see if NCR made it, and then ask yourself, quote, what if AMP provided the collateralization to ensure withdrawals and deposits were settled correctly, end quote. Clover Commerce, Shopify, Bed Bath Beyond, AMC/Regal Movie Theaters, Circle Pay by Goldman Sachs. Having a proven technology is great, but market usage is more important. FlexaNetwork has built up real business relationships and with token holders across the cryptocurrency rainbox. Is there a clear winner here at this stage? I'll let you decide, but I do want to call it a point I made earlier. Merchants today, if you go shopping, just look at the ways to pay. Don't just have one account. They have multiple. Merchants with multiple ways to pay. This is key. Tyler candles. If you are an investor in the AMP token and do not know about Tyler candles as a theoretical possibility, then you need to immediately stop this video, click the description, and find the Tyler candle link. It's very important, but then so is staking. AMP staking, Solana staking. Now technically, you can stake both your AMP or your Solana. You might ask, Will, which is better? Well, my answer would be both. I'd suggest that the best answer for staking at this early stage of the blockchain and cryptocurrency journey is that yes, stake your bags. Regulation friendly. Regulations, which I touched on earlier, these are important parts of the equation. However, I need to ensure that you understand that Solana Pay could run afoul of some serious regulations if it isn't careful. This is why FlexaNetwork has been so methodical in building out their network, and it's driven from the background of the Flexa team. When you have regulations, which I touched on earlier, these are important parts of the equation. However, I need to ensure that you understand that Solana Pay could run afoul of some of these if they are not careful. When you have experience in the real underbelly of finance, then you see the machine for what it is. A continuum of hundreds of years of laws, rules, and regulations that, if you don't try to follow, brings the full might of people with guns to your front door. It's best to play nice in that system. Speaking of system, there's one last parting quote. Well, isn't that interesting, end quote, that our Twitter thread doesn't cover directly, and that's FTX and Pantera Capital. FTX partner, Pantera Capital. I'll admit that I didn't dig real deep on finding FlexaNetwork associations to FTX partner, but what I did find and found it quite interesting is that Pantera Capital has investments in both Solana Pay and AMP token. So naturally the question would be, well, why is that? Well, I think it's related to what I've already said earlier. If Solana Pay brings more users to the cryptocurrency ecosystem, into the economy, so to speak, then that necessarily has bullish pressure through increased adoption of the AMP token and FlexaNetwork. Further, as explained, merchants aren't ever going to settle for just accepting one form of currency, not in today's world, and so it does raise some very interesting questions about the future. For example, if Anchor provides a Web3 infrastructure for all the blockchains, but FlexaNetwork provides the other missing ingredient to enable spend capability of coins and tokens off those blockchains, then what weird Ghostbusters-like event happens should those two business streams cross? Let me tell you what I do know. This is Unusual Due Diligence. I'm your host, Poseidon, god of the sea, and animate Milkshake. In today's fresh episode, we covered a comparison of Solana Pay to the AMP token and FlexaNetwork, and we even talked about men with guns. Oh, and I tossed in a Ghostbusters reference. The 80s, man, those were a magical time. Make waves, my friends.